Right, so over the weekend there was the first of two conferences being held by the Tory hard right, every bit as mad as you might expect in what they're saying. I mentioned them briefly in a video last week, and the first of these has basically been an assembly of the Boris Johnson Fan Club, so-called conservative democratic organisation created by Johnson cheerleader and former Tory MEP David Campbell-Bannerman, and on the basis that not everyone is able to speak fluent crap, as all of these speakers at this event were extremely adept at doing, let alone understand it. I thought I'd cover it a little bit, because often these events don't get well covered in the media, and I think they should to an extent, because it really does give an insight into what these people really think, how they think, and what they really believe when they're figuring they're just addressing the party faithful or the batshit end of it. Now, as I said, these are the Boris Johnson cheerleaders, the bring him back types. Rishi Sunak being as unappealing to this lot as he is to everyone who wants to see an end to this government, really, just for completely different reasons. We want the Tories out because we want a better country, which they will never deliver. This lot just want to win for winning's sake and democracy be damned, all despite the fact Johnson has barely bothered to turn up to Parliament to do the job he was elected to since he resigned, preferring to make millions on the speech circuit, and indeed couldn't even be bothered to turn up to this showboating event for everyone to kiss his arse at and, adulation. He doesn't generally miss out on such things. He does love to have his ego stroked a little bit, doesn't he? Though he did send a nice little video message to them, in full of the usual bumbling bluster act he puts on that people still seem to lap up, notably here, of course, the lobotomized, empathy-deficient, greed-driven sliver of society he genuinely represents. Blah, 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 get Brexit done. Thank you for bending over for me, whiff waff. He did notably say thank you for campaigning for freedom and democracy, which, well, I'm going to come back to that point in a little bit presently. His non-attendance was probably down to being too busy moving into his new £3.8 million pad that he paid cash for, all after securing £245,000 from the public purse of our money in the way of legal aid to defend himself against all the accusations of lying in Parliament still laid at his feet. He can shell out millions for a new house, but is still scabbing public funds to defend himself from lying to all of us from us. He's still on the take, still on the make, unapologetic, unashamed, still very much the bloviating waste of skin and drain on society he always has been. His defenders will, of course, have none of it. Labour is still filled to the brim with hard-left, Britain-hating, criminal-supporting socialists, began Priti Patel at this event, giving a flavour of what we were in for and clearly taking a swipe at Starmer for not purging fast enough. They'll cancel our freedoms. Socialism is incompatible with freedom. Capitalism is best. We still need to take back control, she raved. She took a veiled swipe at Sunak too, accusing colleagues of doing a better job of damaging their party than the opposition have, and if the centre of the party spent more time with her hard right wing, then they probably wouldn't have just lost 1,000 local election seats. Of course, the eulogising of Johnson was the theme of the whole event, so on she went, bleating about the ousting of a democratically elected leader, and the most electorally successful leader since Margaret Thatcher. He was a man that got Brexit done, got us through a global pandemic. She then had a sit-down interview with GB News' grinning idiot Dan Wootton, talking about the kangaroo court, as he put it, Johnson faces over Partygate. He asked Patel if it all seemed corrupt. Well, there's a leading question, isn't there? To which she agreed completely, talking of corruption, collusion, and lack of transparency. She was asked about Kemi Badenoch, the business secretary, scrapping the Rees-Mogg dream of binning EU regulations, thousands of them all in one go, the reclaimed EU bill, when the Tories suddenly discovered they didn't actually know what exactly they were binning and suddenly got cold feet that they might accidentally trash something important, to which she talked of betrayal and letting people down. Well, it might be news to Patel, but we've had 13 years of her party, most notably Johnson, betraying us and letting us down. Johnson's got a tidy sum to see off that Partygate corruption, so let's see how that goes. He didn't lead us through the pandemic, he threw us under a bus through it, though at least this one didn't have a pack of lies written on the side of it. He hasn't got Brexit done and you know it, or else you wouldn't be talking about taking back control still. Do we not have it now, after we left after all? It's what gave Johnson such a massive majority going into the last general election, after all. It was the Brexit election, the Brexit con. It's been played, and you haven't got a backup, be it Sunak leading us into the next election, or Johnson worming his way somehow back into power. All with the help of people like Patel, who finished her cosy chat with the talking sphincter Wootton by saying that if Sunak and Braverman cannot stop the votes, then leaving the European Convention on Human Rights would be a game changer. Our rights being binned, as they would be too, would be a price worth paying to appease the Tory racists like Patel, but would turn us into a pariah state and undermine decades' worth of legislation, making the binning of thousands of bits of EU regulation look like the tip of a flaming great iceberg. The Boris Johnson Fan Club, folks, aren't they just peachy? She wasn't alone, though. Tufton Street twerp Mark Littlewood of the Institute of Economic Affairs, a man Liz Truss wants to put into the House of Lords, presumably for services to opaquely funded think tanks, bleated about Brexit betrayals and not taking back control, aping Patel. Desmond Swain, he who likes to have a snooze on the benches, looks a little bit mad. He talked about looking like a child molester, so he's still as mad as a coked-up badger then. Nadine Dorries, she must have been bereft at the lack of Johnson at the event. Take that how you like. She went after the media for seeking to collude and bring down her precious Boris as if they didn't play their parts in driving the Brexit narrative, which put Bozo in power to begin with, along with the incessant attacks on the then leader of the opposition when we actually had one worthy of the title. A member called Michelle Ballantyne spoke up about having left to set up Reform UK, left the Tories to set up Reform UK in Scotland, and complained about them not being democratic when the entire thing is owned and funded by one man, is a company. She admitted it. The perma-tanned, perma-grinning talk TV mouthpiece Richard Tice. There are clips of other speakers galore. Rees-Mogg and his sister were both there. Other MPs, other lords, all worshipping at the altar of a man who cannot brush his hair or find a suit that fits him, let alone run the country in anyone's interest other than his own. Check out the @implausible blog account on Twitter. They posted loads of them. One of those clip poster accounts James O'Brien thinks are weirdos, but do a damn sight more for informing people than he ever does. I'll post a link. But the one speaker that really is worth talking about because of what they admitted to on that topic of democracy that I alluded to at the start, the key speech that drew me in was the speech by Peter Cruddas, Lord Cruddas. And this is what he had to say in his speech. This is what I caught hold of. This is what grabbed me. It told us a lot about what scares the Tories most of all. He said, if Labour win the next election, they will reduce the voting age to 16. They will abolish voter ID, and they will introduce proportional representation, making it almost impossible for the Conservatives to win an outright majority in the future. We will become a country of coalition governments, and outright Conservative governments will be a thing of the past. Sounds lovely, doesn't it? He went on to eulogise Johnson as well. There's only so much any person deserves to take of that. And frankly, I think much more, and you'll want to spew watching this video, and I don't want you to do that. But of course, the overwhelming point of this event is to bemoan the loss of Johnson and give Sunak a kicking. The small matter of Liz Truss having been Johnson's immediate successor, notwithstanding, though Sunak was the first to resign Johnson's cabinet, spelling the beginning of the end for him, wasn't it? Anyway, Cruddas basically spelled out a list of all the things we clearly need to introduce if we're to permanently remove the threat that Conservative majority governments present to the well-being and well-running of this country. And Cruddas will have done Starmer a massive favour by attributing all of these things to him. Quite undeservedly, I felt. Cruddas was preaching to the converted here, of course, but anyone else listening, well, they might be thinking Starmer a more attractive prospect after that. He isn't, as you all know my feelings towards him by now if you watch my content regularly, and Cruddas is certainly wrong on several points. Starmer doesn't want PR. He's already ruled that out. He has made no mention of repealing voter ID laws, although I understand people are trying to talk him into it. But the Tories conceivably may do that themselves yet, as Jacob Rees-Mogg has come out complaining that his party gerrymandered themselves into losing local council seats, thus proving what everyone said, that it was a voter suppression exercise. And as for giving 16-year-olds the vote, yes, apparently Starmer is considering this, which is arguably great, but I'll believe it when I see it. I wouldn't trust a word that passes that liar's lips, and it wouldn't come in until the next election following a Starmer victory anyway. He'd have to implement it after all. Cruddas gave Starmer a shopping list of things to do for the greater good, for the benefit of the nation. The obvious answers following a Starmer win to stop the Tories ever getting back into power with a majority. But for as long as he deludes himself into thinking that Labour can gain a majority, despite the two-party system being utterly undemocratic, despite his own unpopularity, when most people given the chance would probably take their votes elsewhere, he won't deliver on that. Ball's in his court. If you're the sort supporting Starmer, then is this not what you should obviously be telling him, leaning on him to do? There's another conference starting today, the National Conservatism Conference, the NatC Conference, going on over the next few days, so no doubt I will have more Tory rinsing to do over the course of this week. As for Boris Johnson returning, well, sadly, it's not as far-fetched as I would like. And as much as the madness of his supporters being on show over the weekend should put any normal thinking person off, they're vocal and they're angry with Rishi. check this video out for a bit more on the likelihood of this happening. Cheers, folks.